Hello everyone, we're coming to you live here at Trubian Studios. I have Mr. Garner Mooris, pillar of the community. I'm going to let Garner introduce himself and give us a little background, like, you know, where you was born and where you was raised at.
I was born in Mississippi, the county of Panola, 55 miles south of Memphis, 26 miles west of Ole Miss, in a predominantly black section of Mississippi. I worked for my parents growing up, not having a lot of money. One of the oldest of 13 kids. We had to learn to survive. Survival meant knowing what to do and when to do it, knowing what not to do and when not to do it. So I attended a small school known as the Rosenwald School System. This school was designed by Julius Rosenwald, who was a member of the Sears Roebuck family. And their mission was to go into the South and sections of the South and build schools to educate blacks. The method they used was they would spend 50% of the cost of putting the facility up. But the history they developed across the country, including Illinois, 5,500 schools. Most of them are not in existence anymore, most of the buildings. These buildings were built, these schools were built normally in the community sponsored by the church, associated with the church. But the way the local people got their share of the money was that in that time, like this was when there was a lot of timber. They took the timber to the sawmill, they trimmed it into lumber, and from that they built the schools, 50-50. They put up the money, the community put up the other half in kind. Now, the thing was not known is that during that time, by the standards of that time, economic standards, the blacks were fairly wealthy, and that's not a known fact. They owned steam engines. Now, I'm not sure they owned the tracks, but they did own steam engines to hold all their lumber out of there. So as the timber was cut, the land was cleared, and that's the way they used their farm. In the spring, every year we go in there and you see people cutting trees and burning the wood, and later on they would plow and plant the crops. So first year they might clear 3 acres, next year 3 acres, and that they got 9 acres. So some of the blacks accumulated hundreds of acres of land at that time. Now, what's the cost of the land? $15 an acre. My grandfather paid $15 an acre. Today I own that land. I paid $1,000 an acre for it. So that is part of my upbringing.
That's quite interesting, and to say that, you know, African Americans were major landholders, you know, early on. You know, I read about Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, right.
And how, you know, they had built up a prominent business community.
Right.
And so that was pretty much how in Louisiana you guys was able to, Mississippi you guys was able to build up a prominent community. How did you guys have a working relationship with the neighboring white communities? And if so, what was the dynamic?
And that is unclear, actually, how the finance originally started. But what happened was that even with sawmills and timber, there was quite a profit there. So they built up their money. They did not own any banks. there was some whites in the area that really bought the original land. When they homesteaded, I can't really say. But from that, they sold it to the local farmers, local people, brother.
Right.
And from that, they developed the land and they became landowners. Now, I remember in my lifetime, 80 years old, that where my family lived, where I grew up, it was a half a mile from the nearest road, a half a mile from the nearest mailbox. So then they went from that later, they cleared the land, cleared the trail, so you could drive vehicles in that. That's another thing about the area. There were a lot of blacks in the area that owned automobiles in 1929. So 1930, I was born in 1933. I can remember my grandfather bought in 1932. It wasn't new, and then later on he bought a new 1937. I'm just getting old enough to remember that time, but I remember that. My uncle owned the Ford with the rumble seat. That what it was. The trunk area had a seat you open up, you could sit in there and ride around in the community. You know,
Right.
as kids, a lot of the ladies go to jail for transporting people like that.
Yes.
But these are the things that happen now. An interesting thing about it, in that area, there were no whites that lived in that community. I don't know, I was probably 10 years old, 11 years old, before I ever had any exposure to another race in Mississippi, and that's unbelievable. No, they didn't come in there.
Right.
You didn't go out and they didn't come in there. Now, was it feared? No, I don't think. It was just an accepted fact that that's their area or that.
Right.
Let's stay out of that. Now, the other advantage of that was that you could do things there with no regards to any kind of restrictions,
Right.
as long as you stayed in your area.
Right.
You see, then we didn't go in that area either.
Well, you know, what was bringing, you know, you come in a couple of years before the Depression. How
Depression, I would say.
Yeah.
A couple of years before they started Depression, yes.
Yeah, so how did the Depression affect the black community? Or did it really didn't have any significant effects? You know.
Well, like I said, if you got nothing, you're not used to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, well, I can see how if you have your own area, you know, you had quite a few prominent black businessmen. So I can see how you can, you know, pretty much build your area, and it could be, you know, a nice area.
It was definitely a nice area. Some of the nicer homes, and hard to believe, were owned by blacks. Now, here's another thing that was not told, that a lot of the successful white businesses were financed by blacks based on a verbal agreement. And the blacks never got repaid for their money.
Right.
So how did they collect? It's unknown, but it does appear that there was certain opportunity that was provided to the families, or to the people who loaned the money. I know the John Deere company in town is said to be owned by a black man named Watch James, who uptown just reached his pocket and let him have a certain amount of money, which he never paid back. But Watch James turned out to be a very successful person. In other words, he owned a lot of property. He owned cotton gins, he owned sawmills, just about everything he owned now. Now, the thing, there were the names of the people in the area I lived in was Ed Griffin, he was a black African-American, in timber, long lots of timber. It was Wash James, let's see who else it was, Edward Thomas, let's see, well, these are the pillars of the community.
Right.
Now, a lot of these people got some of their finances from World War II. They were in World War II when they had what they call a muster now pay. So Edward Thomas, which is a cousin, I'm told, and I think it's correct, that when he took his muster now pay and he bought land, the rest of his cousin brothers, they bought Stacey Adams shoes. and lived on Wash James' place at the sharecropper. Now, I hate to laugh about this, but Edward Thomas, when he died, he gave all of those people who lived on his place, cousins, nephews, he gave them 50 acres of land free. So I thought that was interesting that he would remember them. But they had Stacey Adams shoes plus property. But Stacey Adams shoes being a sharecropper is now. Now another thing about if they, some of these things are comical, but I think about it. But really, if you look at reality, it's impossible for that to have occurred. But if you went to jail, and was Thomas to let him out, and you got out, there was no such thing as bail bondsman. It was word of mouth.
So tell me, what was the organizations? I mean, like in modern day, we have the NAACP, we have Prince Hall, we have National Council of Negro Women. What was the organizations in the community back then?
The church. The church controlled everything.
Was it churches, or was it a predominant one church?
No, it was whatever church was in. Every church, around every church, a community developed. And they consisted of different denominations. But the church was the one that dealt with all the problems. And it's not your wife, as the ministers have to come in.
Because that was I had a question about that, because nowadays you may find about 5 different churches in the same 2-block radius. So was it one black church per district?
No, it really would come up to be a church, and around that church, the members would sell, and they would become that community. I can remember there were 4 churches. Was massive. First, the oldest church in that area was Concord. Then there was a low spot in January when it would rain water built up, so the people could not go to church between whatever the rainy season consisted of. Right. So then the people on the wrong side of the creek didn't have a church to go to, so from that another church developed, which they call Macedonia, which is a church that I grew up in. Then up the road in the hills, so to speak, and that's talk from down there, the Methodist church developed. And then over in the corporation area, it was called the town, that was smaller denomination, that's where we called it the Sanctified. So those were about the 3 major denominations that I knew when I was growing up.
Did they have like relationships?
Oh yes, it was a friendly relationship. The only thing about it, I'm a Baptist, you're a Methodist. And that's wasn't right, really. Yeah. But it was strong, and you didn't get any discussion about it because you were going to lose. Now, another thing that happened was the schools. Well, and I heard on TV this morning about Dunbar in Washington, D.C. was the first African-American public school in this country, see. So the schools consisted of a building, a few chairs, and a wood stove. That's how you got your heat. Well, the churches had wood stoves too. Now, how did they get the wood? So every parent that had kids in their school was required to take wood to the school. Now, the teachers, in order to teach during those days, all they required was a 9th grade education. That's the idea of the quality of education. Then they got, as they progressed up the ladder, economic development, so to speak, they got a place you had to have a high school certificate and all to be a teacher. Then they advanced in the further, you could teach school and after having successfully completed the 12th grade, but you had to be going to school during the summer to advance towards your bachelor's. Now, that
it kind of seemed like the black community was a world of its own, in the sense that it had its own organization. What was the since it was a black community, the law enforcement? What was the shape of the law?
Well, in my community, in the black community, there were no laws as long as and I had to laugh on that. This is fact. And there was, in the vocabulary, there was no such thing as sheriff. It was the law. And I can tell you about that, but you know, you'd be out on weekends, and there wasn't no age group where you could not go. My uncle on the joke, and if my uncle on that joke, I could go any time, day or night, right? Because that's my uncle on this. I have a right to be here, and they never bothered. But if I got out of that area now,
it would be a different story.
That's a different story.
Right.
Now, if I got onto the other community, off my family's property, and my family would be the Mooris family, because we own their own quite a bit of property, and commit something, I may be accountable. But as long as I stayed on my father's place, my grandparents' place, I mean, there were no laws.
So,
you had to get along with me.
So essentially, like, I know part of my family is from Arkansas, and we had, you know, like one of the churches, family churches, the family donated the money for the church, and behind the church, a lot of our family members are in the graveyard. And in Arkansas, our family was, you know, large property holders as well. So basically, on a particular person's property could be the town. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right, that's good. Now, there was another thing about it. If a family decided to sell their land, their property, or whatever it is, that land had to be sold to another African American. That was an accepted fact. And that's changed now to some extent. But I mean, that was one thing. You did not sell that property, no matter how much money was offered to anybody other than another black. Now, all of that, what happened to all that land? Now, what happened is as the forefathers, as older people, died off, their kids inherited the land. But now that's where the problem developed. My friend, my relatives, my Thanksgiving, they were heavy drinkers. They were heavy gamblers, and then they lost the land. They stopped the money. They took on. They stopped selling out. I could drive in miles of that. They used to be the family, and that some other people. That's where some of the plantations developed. They would buy these large blocks of land.
So, how? I mean, are you aware how? You know, after slavery and the Reconstruction period, how did African Americans actually get these blocks of land?
That is questionable now, and we know there was scandals. Now my family, my patriarch, said they owned land 4 years before the end of slavery, and then all the names were listed and everything. Now, how did that happen? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I have a suspicion what's going on involved. And now, I have an 18-minute documentary I really would like to show you. It's really got a lot of good information there. And that went on until things really started changing was Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's when things changed. There was a 54th moved around Mississippi Board of Kansas, so the school started right now. Back to that time, what happened was that the black kids, African American kids, we got to school, we walked. No matter how bad the weather was, we had to go to school.
And these kids today, boy.
Now, the white kids had buses. And I remember one incident, when you know white kids can be kids, they come in there and throw something out the window. Well, the way we managed to stop that, one of the kids picked up a rock. And knowing what's going to happen, when that, whatever came out of the window, the rock went in. And you think they didn't crack down, so what they did. And then another thing, the kids would meet upstairs uptown, so to speak. Whites on Saturday, one school and blacks. They met and had a fight that you called the riot in those days. So they got together, how they fixed that? They said, well, we'll have each school let out at different times. You know. Nobody got in trouble. That was where they worked there quiet. But that bus, we didn't get any more rocks thrown out of that bus.
Let me ask you on this question. You know, I commend the civil rights effort. You know, there has been a lot of ground that has been gained through the civil rights effort. The element that I want to ask you about is integration.
Well, let's go back before integration. Well, what happened was that they didn't call it civil rights in those days. That was not in the vocabulary for people down there. So, word of mouth, we have a family, my grandfather, I can remember in the spring, there'd be families in trouble, financially or whatever with it. My grandfather would go in there and move that family out and let them stay on his property and work until they either got tired, they started migrating north, and then another family would come in there. If they owed them the money, and that's what they were saying, they managed to pay the man off. I don't know, was a promise of what, and then that they could move on. There was one plantation. There are a lot of things about the South that's not been told. A lot of stories, like you said, about documentation. Well, this guy, he was real friendly with his sharecroppers. Well, he got killed in an automobile accident. And every kid that lived on that plantation, I think it was 900 acres, I forget how many families was, they all was able to go to school, to college. Black college, now, there wasn't such thing as integration there. Yes. But they could go and they turned out to be fairly successful people. They go time to be school teachers and all that. But this time, these people you had to have a degree to teach schools. Now, integration, there were some bad things that happened. And I know a friend of mine, he would normally go out. He was a young kid, always with a father, so you'd go out, say on a date, and you'd be talking to the girl, and he was sitting in the car. So he went to sleep, she had pulled up, and this was in the city limits, so to speak. And he moved something, the guy killed him, wasn't doing anything done about it. So there are many bad things that happen there too. Right. But you learn how to avoid those situations. You know, even, I had to laugh, I got to think about it. You didn't wear a white shirt during the week, you'd been in trouble now.
So no white t-shirts.
No white shirts. Now, I had some good mentors when I was growing up. When I look back on it, it really was, under those conditions, under the normal conditions, we had a fairly good life. Now, there was one mentor, he was black, and his name was Dave Rice, I remember him. And he owned, now that was another thing. See, there's a lot of things happened, I have to keep going back. He owned a baseball team, and what a baseball team consisted of, you had land, you put a fence around it, not to accommodate the ball, they'd have a few chairs and people could stay in. But, well, so yeah, they young one of those. And he had brand new automobiles, some automobiles managed to own. They always managed to own new automobiles. Said 1942 Pontiac Straight 8, red Pontiac. And boy, was I impressed with that. Walking to the grocery store. They said that the grocery was known, the grocery was cheaper in the city than in the country because it had rural stores, you know. And then he would get his bags and walk back to the city limits, open his car, put his groceries in his car, get his new Pontiac and drive back to the country, back to his house. And I remember him, I remember him at Pontiac and Stacey Adams shoes for a long time. I had nothing to do with Stacey Adams shoes because of, and he was dressed well, he really wore nice clothes. Go ahead.
There wasn't no ambition to build up the black area as the city, you know, like how you have the streets, the stores, the shops. I mean, the black community was pretty much content on just...
Well, I don't know that they were content. There were classes of people, as you know, in any place. So, how shall I say this to make sure I could? There were people who worked during the day, worked different places, whether it be janitorial or what they lived in town.
Right.
Okay, then the people who lived in the country were the people, the landowners, and then there were the sharecroppers. And the sharecroppers, if you want to talk about diversity, they were white, they were poor people, less poor, so everybody in town, you walk in there, we lived in a place called Across the River. Where you see you from across the river, everybody looked up to you, because your family owned land, and land was the measurement of success, right? Now, these things sound impossible, they were true. So, that's pretty much the way the ambition. Now, another thing, the school, I never heard of a substitute teacher until I became an adult. There was no such thing as substitute teachers. If the teacher had to go to town or something, she would take the most influential kid in her mind. That would be the kid in charge of the school. And I mean, you followed by the rules. You had recess at 2 o'clock, 2:15. You rang the bell at 2 o'clock. You rang again at 15 minutes, and you had better be in the classroom, because those kids would be fortunate. If you had a spelling test, she'd give the words to you, and then you would mark the papers, questions. And you believe it or not, these kids were honest. They followed the rules. I haven't been one of the trusted ones, I guess. Now, you talk about, when we say schools, the academics of the school, they taught you what they call reading. They taught you to print. And they taught you to add. So if you could add, they give you 10 problems, you worked 10 of them, you got 100%. Right. Yeah, you got, you know. And they give that to the teacher, she would check it out, but she better not find that you made a mistake. Now, and there's discipline in the school. And while they're down, they were with switch earners. And the punishment was severe, was painful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but let's see, the teachers, the ministers, they ran things.
You know, I'm a history buff, you know, and I like to know different things. What role, if any, did the lodge play?
Lodge was powerful. That was the thing about at every church. They had 2 buildings. They had the church, and they had a building called the lodge. And I think there's one still in my hometown, there's one there. And these are 2-story buildings. They were built really out of bricks, stone, bricks, so to speak. And normally ministers were, just lack of a better word, the minister was the minister of the church. On Sunday, the rest of the week he was master of the lodge. So he would contribute your destiny, see.
And you know, that's a very interesting point because, you know, now it seems as though that the lodge and the church is separate.
Yeah,
When at one time the lodge and the church was kind of, you know, had a synonymous play. What do you think contributed to the separation?
Economics. If the pastor was not the master of the lodge, in my estimation, the pastor perceived the lodge as a competitor. So the money going to lodge, he felt should really come to church, so that started going down from there. You know, that was a time when if you went to court, not all the judges were members of the lodge, was Masonic. And the judge was Masonic. A large percentage of law enforcement was Masonic, so they were together. But I really think the thing that really, with the downfall, was alcohol. That really, in my observation, is that the people just did not like domestic issues, and whiskey normally led to otherwise fighting. So I think that was the start of it. And then all the other organizations came in and started competing. And the one thing you get, power is a hard thing to give up. And what Abe Lincoln said, if you want to test a man's character, give him power. There was a good illustration of that, a demonstration of that, what had happened on the community. But
About what, you know, in the sense of time frame.
yes,
What, you know, 40s, 50s, when the fabric of the southern the southern community started to kind of like unravel.
when people started migrating to the city, if you look at a lot of the blues singers came out the Delta. The Delta was where the plantations were. We live, it's called the gateway to the Delta. So for about 5 miles west of the city limits, all that was farm country. So then as people started migrating and the equipment came in, tractors, people started buying tractors and all that. Well, they didn't need the tractor driver. Another thing that came in later on, they passed a federal law where we used to work, mainly you could work out high pressure for 25 cents a day. Then it probably went up to $3 a day. And then they came in and said, okay, you got to pay by the hour. And that turned out to be minimum wage. So that drove a lot of farmers out of business. They were not used to that. And as a result, they felt they could afford it, and they did not afford it.
So it was more like the landowner, kind of in the sense of, you know, you live on my land, I pay you a wage, and it also, you live on, I'm able to pay you that wage because you're living on my land as well.
Yeah, that's true. Sharecropper meant that labor, they provide the seeds at the end of the year. And so you were supposed to get 50% of the profit. Now, what happened was people didn't have any money, so they went to the store, and I think it was doing on the book. Well, in the fall, yeah, I was expected to be paid, so if you live in a place near the store, everything was put on the board. Everything that you were charged with wasn't things that you had bought.
And was these store, was these who were generally the store owners?
The plantation owner, the land owner.
So it was kind of like kind of indentured servitude, if you will.
Oh, yes, you see that, you seen that this documentary, Slave by Another Name?
Yeah.
That is really what happened. I think that's true. That is so accurate, that's what happened. Now, there was another thing too. See, a lot of people felt that was the only way they, and that's all they knew. They could not live, they could not survive if they moved out the place. So then when they finally went to the city, and there were lots of jobs, Chicago was a good example. There's a book out, Black Middle Class. You ever read it?
Yeah, a lot of my family, they migrated to Illinois. I have family in Chicago, St. Louis, and Gary, Indiana.
Right.
You know, those were places where the industrial revolution.
Yeah, people in Louisiana, Mississippi went straight north. They ended up in St. Louis, Chicago, and Detroit. The people in North Carolina now, they went straight north. They ended up in Columbus, Ohio, and West Virginia. The guys in West Virginia said Route 23, read right. And Route 23, that was the straight road to get out of the South. And I mean, that's that's another thing. You just talk and think about things. You see about the Mason-Dixon line. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so that's why Black history is so important. Okay, on the Mason-Dixon line, if you're on the train, on the bus, let's say buses. When they got, and this was at the Ohio River line of Kentucky, as long as you were south of that line, the blacks and the white, the blacks had to stand in the back, and the whites sat in the front, and the white down on the bus with the most cross down to their problem. You had to get to move back further back, and there would be times when there might be blacks standing up, and the HC's up front, and you had to accept it. Well, when people would leave from the south, and going to catch the train, I remember number 4, I think from New Orleans to Chicago. And people get on the bus and have a suitcase and then have a box. And that would be their food that they got home between Memphis and Chicago. They eat on there. You could eat in the dining car, but it was segregated also. But it cost money, so you get
Bring your own food.
yeah, you could bring your own food. And sometimes you'd be on the train, it'd be like a picnic, everybody over the box, everybody so down there sample foods. Then if you were going south, you could be sitting anywhere on the train or bus when you got to that Mason-Dixon line. The bus stopped and people separated by race.
Do you think that people that migrated up north kind of had some false expectations of what they will meet in the north? Or do you think that the expectations were met?
Expectations were not met. They had a newfound life, you know. A lot of those people that went north eventually ended up incarcerated. A lot of them did. They got another thing, they had a paycheck every week. They weren't used to that. So you couldn't handle money. So they drank. If you look up, look at my Chicago, I just imagine on Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, all those bars, you know. Have you ever seen the movie Cadillac Records?
Yes.
Okay, a lot of those images now, where I could have got some pick that junk back down in Mississippi, and he said that probably didn't have couldn't go out with box of matches, but he had it made. So the expectations, there were no expectations. No, they were not met. Whatever they wanted to do. See. Now a lot of people from the South did buy, and a lot of wealthy people in Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit, from the South, they remember the old joke. The old joke was a place where everybody congregated on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That's what they call it, juke joint?
Yeah. It's in the movie.
Yeah.
That movie was rather accurate.
Yeah, my grandfather, you know, I know a lot of black people that came to California via military. You know, some came jobs, but a lot came via military. And a lot of the conditions that were, you know, southern conditions, were, a lot of people don't know, were in California, where you had segregation, you know, black folks had their own little sections that they could only congregate in or do what they was able to do, and it wasn't an integrated situation as the North made it.
Well, you know, the problem, and I probably should not say this, there were no difference between California and Mississippi and Chicago. The only thing that the people who lived in these towns thought they had it better than the guys, the people that lived in the South. Now they wore better clothes, they dressed better, but the price they paid for that is unbelievable. So they really, like when the NAACP started, and then the black who said NAACP is irrelevant out of their mind because everybody benefited from NAACP, blacks and white, especially white women, because they started enforcing. But if you look at LA was just as bad as Mississippi.
Yeah.
There was just more of it there. And
my mother actually was born and raised in Los Angeles, so.
yeah. And but they still was raised with the behavior of what their parents were experiencing
Right.
in the South. Now, I had an uncle, my grandmother told me this, that was killed by a white man because he was a big man, big guy. He wasn't that I let the man whip him. So the man finally shot him in the bed, and nothing was done about it. So there was advantages to live in the black section and not have to go out for anything. You didn't care what's happening down the street as long as it wasn't in your section.
Right.
So black people were treated like that.
Now, you know, a lot of times when we hear of certain atrocities that were committed against black people, was there any vigilante justice going on? Was there?
There was no justice.
So generally, if somebody black got killed unjustly, just, you know.
I was in Mississippi Service. I lived in, I won't call the city, another city. And there was a joke, so to speak, in a corner. And every week, just about somebody got killed. If I shot you today, one of your people would shoot one of my people. And then they call it gang battle, but this is reality.
Right.
You know, they never got to trial. They did not like that. There were some miserable times that it happened across the country, and people that all they had to do is get together and organize. They could stop it, but they never stopped it. But those people they control the money.
You know, in retrospect, as you look back and you see some of the situations, you know, trials, tribulations that we went through, is there a way that our past experience can redress some of our present experience?
Well, yes, education. Now, I'm not really academics, yes, but such as realize these things I'm talking about here, the average person on the street who was 50 years, let's say 60 years less, would say it didn't happen. I would not have stood for that. That is really a false accusation. That meant in order to survive, that's what you had to put up with. And survive and take care of your family, hoping you see, you know, that you're still in slavery. You know, just imagine that your parents, I walk in and I'm going to take you, and your parents can't say anything about it. My parents have 15 kids and don't know where they are and can do nothing to prevent it.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine, you know, I mean, a lot of times people say today that I'd be dead back then. You would be.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
that's what it would be.
you know, and
I would have been, yeah.
I can't say that, you know, a lot of people have done a lot of things for survival purposes, and one really wouldn't know what they would do unless they were actually in the situation, you know. And it is, you know, on one hand, for me, to know about the past and what my ancestors been through,
Oh, yeah.
it gives me a kind of, it gives me, you know, priority. It gives me, you know, appreciation. It gives me, you know, perspective. You know, and so I do think that education of our experience, you know, definitely needs to be passed on to our children, because when it comes to the struggle, you know, they don't make the connection.
I'm totally agree with that. That's the thing that our people need to know. We need to tell them about this in such a manner that they accept it. Because, you know, I was saying down there, when I was coming up, I'm 80 years old, so, you know, I can talk about a lot of things. But if you lived on a plantation, they said, the plantation owner taught, and you were a good worker, a good boy, so to speak. We tell you, if you stay out of jail, I'll keep you out of the grave. So you're going to do anything you want to, and I'll protect you. If somebody slap you, eliminate them. And I'll keep you out of jail. But they get the best of them, will bury you.
Yes.
The other ones, so they would bury you.
You know, and then just the, you know, when you talk about politics, I mean, I can just imagine, you know, the brand of politics that we have now couldn't compare to what you had to do back then, because, you know, you can be in a prominent situation, but yet you definitely have to pay your cards back.
Well, the only politics that you down there at that time was hope. That's all hope that Mr. So-and-so, who you felt positive about, got the position. And that went all the way to the President of the United States.
Well, let me ask you another question. You know, and these are things, you know, a lot of misnomers about black people and the South. You know, I know especially when you're dealing with Louisiana, you have your Creole mixture. You know, you in Mississippi. Did they have any, when you talk about witches? I mean, because this is something that, you know, we think about, and, you know, we told about, you know, like when you talk about voodoo, witchcraft. Was these things a part of the community?
Yes, everybody believed it too. Now, did it actually happen? I can't give you an example. Yes, they believe. I'm going to put a fix on you.
I mean, it's funny, but at the same time, you know, if it's etched in your belief system,
right,
you know, you know. So, did they have people in the community that, you know, people went to, or was these people in the back bushes?
They were in the back bushes, so to speak. Now, the one thing that they worried about was, and I don't mean this to be, maybe not even be factual, called gypsies. They would go in and, what you call it, take your coat, put you out, take your money and all that. Yes, there were stories. I never witnessed anybody that happened to, but there were stories out there, yes.
So a gypsy was a gypsy a person who was a con artist, or was a gypsy a person, and was a lot of times when we think of gypsy, you know, we can also think of white folks. So was gypsies kind of like could be a black folks and white folks?
It could be normally perceived as being another ethnicity other than African American. Who they would be, they would probably be light skinned. You stay away from them. They let them be close to you. Stay away from them. They would always show up. So now a lot of those were con artists too. They go in there and say something that they felt that you needed. And I really believe that every time some people fear just of saying no. So they press them into getting everything they have, money-wise. Got everything except the bills. They didn't want the bills.
And also, like, you know, back in the day, I know my grandmother, my great-grandmother, that is, she used to make peach preservatives,
Oh, yes,
and,
right.
you know, and they had a tendency of knowing what to do in certain given situations. Whereas now, you know, we have lost all knowledge of what to do in certain situations, and we just run to the doctor and we try to get a quick fix. You know, where have this knowledge went to as far as, you know, certain home remedies, and, you know, when you're sick and you got a cold, or, you know, if you get burned, or, you know, it's, you know, the list goes on as far as remedies that, you know, we have.
I have to laugh when you're talking. Yeah, it was considered at that time to be countrified to talk about a lot of these so-called home remedies.
Yeah.
And the one that I can think of really, if you got sick, they give you that castor oil. And that's the worst taste, and not to mention the effects of it.
Yeah.
But I use a castor oil. Then another thing is to go out and pick up certain plant roots of certain plants and put them in a pot and boil them, and then you would drink that. Now whether they did any good, I don't know. But they would do that with castor oil. When every fall you had to take that.
And that's kind of like a, you know, kind of like a gray area when you talk about witchcraft, and
Oh yeah.
because, you know, most medicine comes from herbs,
Right.
you know, and you have people who know what, you know, when you go into the Native Americans, and, you know, they know what herbs to use in different situations. That's just a knowledge of your environment and, you know, chemistry, if you will, but in a crude sense of, you know, the science.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. And some of the problem was effective, but no scientific proof would be out of that it was effective. You had a headache, and you probably would not have a headache tomorrow if you didn't do anything. You take any one way, you convinced that it went away to cross away of it.
No, like the gazebo.
Yeah, right, yeah. So that was good.
All right, and coming up to, when did you come to the high desert? What year did you come to the high
I
desert?
came to high desert in 1963.
1963?
Yeah.
1963, that was almost when Malcolm X got killed.
No, it was Benjamin Franklin. Yeah, he got killed.
I think it was in,
But
yeah, it was before, it was a couple of years before.
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember got to California, they got killed.
Right.
I was disappointed of my people when I got blacks were, I'm gonna say this, I don't care anybody here, and I'm offended. Blacks were beautiful when I got compared to what I was used to, having grown up in this house.
What is your personal vision, you know, if you may share, what you would like to see, you know, here in the high desert, you know, in your lifetime?
Here then, I'm probably controversial.
Well, you know, sometimes, you know, we need that.
Yeah,
you know.
I don't mind being challenged. In fact, I enjoy, I walk a mile for an argument, so to speak. But what I like to see here I'd like to see this area become one large metropolis. Rather than have Atlanta, Victorville, Alpharetta, area, I would like us to have a city with a central government. I really feel that it would be cheaper to operate while everybody having all this, all the expenses, all these fights and disagreements. I just think it's possible for us. Since we're a small community compared to LA, so why can't we have that? The other thing, I'm not convinced that we should not have our own county. Since we're our own county, our county. That idea was for somebody to maintain it.
And that would actually extend from where to where?
From top road past east to, we could leave, we could take in right where we live. Now, the thing about that's part of impossible because in order to do that, we understand it, doesn't have to be voted countywide. People down here is not going to do that. You know, I was out to Freedom, and I went out there for bread one Saturday. And I did some research. People like to be stroked. So I got out there and said, well, when I was directed to come out here, I thought I'd better do some research to learn something about the community. And I found what I determined from my research. That the elevation, I think, was 1,600 feet. The population was 22,000 people, small population. And y'all paid a lot of taxes. And when I said that, man, that really to open up. Because they had no idea that I had any idea about the taxes.
Right.
Toronto pays more taxes at that time than any other organization in this county. But they always, that was a feeling of the people out there that they had no respect for.
Yeah, I do see a lot of potential for growth. You know, what's kind of baffling to me is why we haven't taken the low desert approach, like when you talk about Palm Springs. Because, I mean, we are on the way to Vegas, and, you know, when you talk about industry, you know, you have a population. What is the population, you know, what's going to drive, you know, the industry? And entertainment is you know, a major industry. Tourism is a major industry, you know, and if we were able to, you know, develop a tourist industry, you know what I mean? We already have a beautiful landscape. A lot of people come up here to ride their motorcycles, whether it's, you know, we got a lot of local lakes where people go fishing. I'm surprised that when you talk about the Mojave River right there by the college, you know, they could have dammed that up, and that could have been, you know, a waterfront property.
Well, the other thing about that, there's politics get involved. If you block it up, City of Washington is not going to reach it. Because that's their water supply. You know, I knew that, yeah. And it may force it, but it's not going to be well received for that reason. That's one of the limitations on damming up the Mojave River. That's the water supply for Washington.
Is there a way that in doing so and making that a water that you can still irrigate the water where Barstow wouldn't be affected?
No. It could possibly be done, but they are happy with it, and it's meeting their supplies, so their needs really. So and it's going to cost them any money. And if you take a gallon of water out of Mojave, anything other than this, they see that as a negative. That's their water. You know, right, that water. Every drop of it that's flowing past it.
You know, my stepdaughter, she dances, and you know, she travels to go to little dance recitals or whatnot. And we went to a timeshare in the low desert. And it was like a nice little resort. You know, we don't have no timeshares at this area. You know, we don't have nothing.
Well, I think we have townships in Civil Lake. I think, I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm talking about in the resort type of manner, you know, like, we don't have, you know, when you talk about, you know, hotels, I mean, we got a few hotels, but, you know, when you talk about, amphitheaters and, you know, convention, halls, you know, we're very limited in a selection. The, you know, infrastructure needs to be built up in that manner because if we could attract people up here, then we pull the money up here.
Well,
You know,
I think we are attracting people. I agree with that. The problem is it's going to take time for people to invest. If they invest hope to move money now. These hotels are here now losing money. So
they don't have no attraction, you know what I mean? We don't have no, when you talk about a major jazz festival, you know, what facility do we have to facilitate that other than in Atlanta,
well, you know,
Maverick Stadium?
Maverick Stadium is losing money too, you know. The thing is that jazz festival, you don't have a jazz festival, it's a Maverick Stadium. You gotta price the tickets. And your tickets gotta be priced so that people are willing to afford it. I really don't think we're to the point where we can support a jazz festival now. Gospel Fest, the Johnson Gospel Fest, and they haven't really used money that I'm aware of.
You know, it's like, you know, the jazz festival that they have in Monterey.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you talk about, you know, people travel to those things. And,
Yeah.
and that has to be something where we can create an attraction where people travel, and that will create, you know, an industry, you know, I mean, where, you know, people can get, you know, jobs and, you know, so we were able to be a magnet, some type of hub that, you know, attracts people up to the high desert. You know, I think.
Well, you know, they tried that jazz festival down at the border. You couldn't get down to the traffic. But they didn't continue, so apparently they didn't make money, they didn't find it profitable. See, but in Monterey, you got millions of people to draw from. And they can bring 100,000 people in there, and you never miss them. You draw 100,000 people that been up here, you're going to have a traffic jam.
To say the least.
So, and, you know, bringing entertainers in, that costs a lot of money. So, a good jazz festival up here would probably cost you $500,000 easy to bring in the right entertainment.
You know, you get the proper sponsorship, you know, like they had the Cool Jazz Fest, you know, or, you know, you get, you know, some of these companies, whether it be beer companies or whatnot, that want to promote his brand. You know, it's just a matter of, you know, making a relationship. I've heard, I'm not quite sure, that, you know, they wanted a casino up here, and Hesperia, they turned it down.
Well, now, here's the problem with Hesperia, for example. You know, the Garner casino, that land had to be owned, have been owned by Indians. And they were never able to find that any Indian ever owned that land out there. So that's why they went on. I told the guy I went to Washington to check on that. So, Barstow was having problems with it. Brown was, I really was involved in that. They still haven't seen any dirt turned out there. There's a small casino in Atlanta out here years ago, and it wasn't nothing like the casino you envision. But, now, I don't know if they closed because lack of money, or whether they closed because of other disagreement. I heard they had a disagreement with the city on the taxes. So I don't know. I know right now, not to be economists I've spoken with, that the potential in this area for employment is really great. They're predicting a explosion, you know. But they said something, I'm not sure that I agree with it, but that's hearsay. That the problem is a lack of educated people.
It's, you know, it's, I think when you mention, you know, a black middle class growing here, that's, I've seen a lot of, you know, 35 and up, you know, who, you know, whether, that, you know, professional class working people, educated people. I couldn't really, you know, comment on that. But one thing before we go, that I would think that would be a major plus to the high desert when you talk about, you know, enabling people for employment, is if we were able to have a Metrolink connection. Because, you know, by us not being able to have a Metrolink connection, you know, it's hard for those, you know, we can free up the freeway, you know, the congestion in the freeway, and, you know, and give people access to down the hill, where, you know, people, because a lot of people up here work up here, live up here and work down the hill. And just by not having that Metrolink connection, I think that, that may be, that is kind of a hindrance. I know that they had certain bus routes, but they have tried them on, you know, trial, but the trials didn't go that long. And so we really don't have any public public transportation.
No, they're talking about the bullet train out on that. Now there's a plan on the board where they were going to use a storage area at SCLA for distribution of car that goes in Long Beach, bring it here now. That configuration, that's going to bring it out there, but that's got to be down, that's going to be down the road a few. There are things that are on board, but it's going to be years before it happens. But there are a lot of plans for the Big Valley. I feel good about the community. The community's been good for me.
I can tell, brother. You got that community currency. The doors open up for you. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak with you, and you know, I definitely would like to speak to you again. You gave me some very informative information, historical information, you know, and I'm quite sure that when I go over the footage, I'm going to, you know, come up with some more questions, okay. You know, but I think that you know, I'm gonna make sure that my kids, you know, see this, because, you know, they need to know about their history. And I think that more of our elders, we need to interview more of our elders, because they are the living history book.
Well, and I don't mind being challenged. If I want to challenge me, I'm ready, standing ready. I know this community, I've seen it in this community. I know some things that's happening. And I know something about the good old days when they know they speak very powerfully. And I see where it is now. We have 200 or 300 people at the event. Because everybody knew about the Big Valley, basically. But as you bring people in here and they don't know the community, they start making these mistakes. That often resistance to the most simple things. Right. So, okay, well,
thank you again, brother.
But there's a lot of things that we didn't touch on. Possibly there's a lot to think about.
Yes, yes.
But
what is your personal vision, you know, if you may share, what you would like to see, you know, here in the high desert, you know, in your lifetime?
Here again, I'm probably controversial.
Well, you know, sometimes, you know, we need that.
Yeah,
You know.
I don't mind being challenged. In fact, I enjoy, I walk a mile for an argument, so to speak. But what I'd like to see here, I'd like to see this area become one large metropolis. Rather than have Atlanta, Victorville, Alphabet area, I would like us to have a city with a central government. I really feel that it would be cheaper to operate while everybody having all this, all the expenses, all these fights and disagreements. I just think it's possible for us to be a small community compared to LA. So why can't we have that? The other thing, I'm not convinced that we should not have our own county. We should build our own county. That idea for somebody to maintain it.
And that would actually extend from where to where?
From top going past east to, we can leave, we can take it right where we now, the thing about that's part of possible because in order to do that, we understand it, doesn't have to be voted countywide. People down here is not going to live with that. You know, I was out to Freedom, and I went out there for Brad Winston and Sarah. And I did some research. People like to be stroked. So I got out there and said, well, when I was directed to come out here, I thought I'd better do some research to learn something about the community. And I found what I determined from my research. That the elevation, I think, was 1,600 feet. The population was 22,000 people, small population. And y'all paid a lot of taxes. And when I said that, man, I had to open up. But they had no idea that I had any idea about their taxes.
Right.
Toronto pays more taxes at that time than any other organization in this county. But they always, there was a feeling of people out there that they had no respect for it.
Yeah, I do see a lot of potential for growth. You know, what's kind of baffling to me is why we haven't taken the low desert approach, like when you talk about Palm Springs. Because, I mean, we are on the way to Vegas, and, you know, when you talk about industry, you know, you have a population. What is the population, you know, what's going to drive, you know, the industry? And entertainment is you know, a major industry. Tourism is a major industry, you know, and if we were able to, you know, develop a tourist industry, you know what I mean? We already have a beautiful landscape. A lot of people come up here to ride their motorcycles, whether it's, you know, we got a lot of local lakes where people go fishing. I'm surprised that when you talk about the Mojave River right there by the college, you know, they could have dammed that up, and that could have been, you know, a waterfront property.
Well, the other thing about that, there's politics get involved. If you block it up, City of Washington is not going to reach it. Because that's their water supply. You know, I knew that, yeah. And it may force it, but it's not going to be well received for that reason. That's one of the limitations on damming up the Mojave River. That's the water supply for Washington.
Is there a way that in doing so and making that a water that you can still irrigate the water where Barstow wouldn't be affected?
No. It could possibly be done, but they are happy with it, and it's meeting their supplies. So that need each other. So then, and it's gonna cost them any money. And if you take a gallon of water out of Mojave, or anything other than this, they see that as an empty. That's their water.
You know,
Right, that water, every drop of it, that's flowing past it.
you know, my stepdaughter, she dances and, you know, she travels to go to little dance recitals or whatnot. And we went to a timeshare in the low desert. And it was like a nice little resort. You know, we don't have no timeshares at this area. You know, we don't have nothing.
Well, I think we have no real timeshares in Silver Lake. I think, I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm talking about in a resort type of manner. You know, like we don't have. You know, when you talk about, you know, hotels. I mean, we got a few hotels, but you know, when you talk about amphitheaters and, you know, convention halls, you know, we're very limited in a selection. The, you know, infrastructure needs to be built up in that manner, because if we could attract people up here, then we pull the money up here.
Well, I mean, we are attracting people. I agree with that. The problem is it's going to take time for people to invest. They invest money now. These hotels are here now losing money. So
They don't have no attraction, you know what I mean? We don't have no, when you talk about a major jazz festival, you know, what facility do we have to facilitate that other than in Atlanta,
well, you know,
Maverick Stadium?
Maverick Stadium is losing money too, you know. The thing is that jazz festival, you don't have a jazz festival. It's every Maverick Stadium. You got to price the tickets. And the tickets got to be priced so that people are willing to afford it. I really don't think we're to the point that we can support that jazz festival now. Gospel Fest, the Johnson Gospel Fest, they haven't made any money that I'm aware of.
You know, it's like, you know, the jazz festival that they have in Monterey.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you talk about, you know, people travel to those things, and,
Yeah.
and that has to be something where we can create an attraction where people travel, and that will create, you know, an industry, you know, I mean, where, you know, people can get, you know, jobs, and, you know, so we were able to be a magnet, some type of hub that, you know, attracts people up to the high desert. You know, I think.
Well, you know, they tried that jazz festival down at the border. You couldn't get down to the track, but they didn't continue. So apparently they didn't make money. They didn't find it profitable. See, but in Monterey, you got millions of people to draw from, and they can bring 100,000 people in there, and you never miss it. You draw 100,000 people in up here, you're going to have a traffic jam.
To say the least.
So, and, you know, bringing entertainers in, that costs a lot of money. So, a good jazz festival up here would probably cost you $500,000 easy to bring in the right entertainment.
You know, you get the proper sponsorship, you know, like they had the Cool Jazz Fest, you know, where, you know, you get, you know, some of these companies, whether it be beer companies or whatnot, that want to promote his brand. You know, it's just a matter of, you know, making a relationship. I've heard, I'm not quite sure, that, you know, they wanted a casino up here, and in Hesperia they turned it down.
Well, now, here's the problem with Hesperia, for example. You know, the Birmingham casino, that land had to be owned, have been owned by Indians. And they were never able to find that any Indian ever owned that land out there. So So that's why they went up. I told the guy went to Washington check on that. So, Barstow was having problems with Brown was. I really was involved in that. They still haven't seen any dirt turned out there. They had a small casino in Atlanta right here years ago, and it wasn't nothing like the casino you envision. But, now, I don't know if they closed because lack of money, or whether they closed because other disagreement. I heard they had a disagreement with the city on the taxes. So I don't know. I know right now, not some economists that I've spoken with, that the potential in this area for employment is really great. They're predicting a explosion. You know. But they said something I'm not sure that I agree with it, but I still say that the problem is a lack of educated people.
It's you know, it's I think when you mention, you know, a black middle class growing here, that's I've seen a lot of you know, 35 and up, you know, who, you know, whether that, you know, professional class working people, educated people. I couldn't really, you know, comment on that. But one thing before we go that I would think that would be a major plus to the high desert when you talk about, you know, enabling people for employment is if we were able to have a MetroLink connection. Because, you know, by us not being able to have a MetroLink connection, you know, it's hard for those, you know, we can free up the freeway, you know, the congestion in the freeway, and, you know, and give people access to down the hill, where, you know, people, because a lot of people up here work up here, I mean, live up here and work down the hill. And just by not having that MetroLink connection, I think that that may be, I mean, that is kind of a hindrance. I know that they had certain bus routes, but they have tried them on, you know, trial, but the trials didn't go that long. And so we really don't have any public community, I mean, public transportation.
Well, they're talking about the bullet train out on that. Now, there's a plan on the board where they were going to use a storage area at SCLA or distribution, we'll call it, rather than Long Beach, bring it here now. That comes to fruition, that's going to bring it out there, but that's got to be done, that's going to be done in other people. There are things that are on the drawing board that can be used before it happens. But there are a lot of plans for the Big Valley. I feel good about the community. The community's been good for me.
I can tell, brother. I mean, you got that community currency. I mean, the doors open up for you. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak with you, and you know, I definitely would like to speak to you again. You gave me some very informative information, historical information. You know, and I'm quite sure that when I go over the footage, I'm going to, you know, come up with some more questions.
Okay.
You know, but I think that you know, I'm gonna make sure that my kids, you know, see this, because, you know, they need to know about their history. And I think that more of our elders, we need to interview more of our elders, because they are the living history book.
Well, and I don't mind being challenged. If I want to challenge me, I'm ready, standing ready. I know this community, I've seen it in this community. I know some things that's happening. And I know something about the good old days when they know they speak very powerfully. And I see what it is now. We have 200 or 300 people at the event. I was to the coast, everybody knew about Big Valley, basically. But as you bring people in here and they don't know the community, they start making these mistakes. That often resistance to the most simple things. Right. So, okay, then, Rob.
Well, thank you again, brother.
But there's a lot of things that we didn't touch on. I swear there's a lot to think about.
Yes, yes.